Welcome back to the show, everybody. How about new XRP ETF filings? Oh, yes, we got them. How about no accredited investor rule? How about that? And how about this? Bitcoin Maxis turning into just scared little babies. Oh, my goodness gracious. Somebody wrote that beautiful intro.
Digital Perspectives with Brad Kimes. Come on in.
Welcome back to the show. The Bitcoin Maxis might need a safe room this morning. Oh my goodness. Oh my goodness. $3.73 trillion market cap for crypto. The market is off by 1.9%. Bitcoin, however, 104,800 plus, 3,300 plus for Ethereum. $3.09 for XRP at the number 3 spot. We're off 1.4 on the 24. We're off 3% on the 7-day. 178.2 billion plus market cap for XRP. The range of price between 306 and 314. We'll keep an eye on it. Let's go here first. How about this? Take a listen to this. This is, by the way, Robinhood's CEO.
Now CEO Vlad Tenev wants to do more. Tenev wants to use crypto to kick open the doors of investing in companies before they go public, something currently reserved only for higher net worth individuals. In an op-ed today in the Washington Post entitled, "An Investing Revolution is Coming, the U.S. Isn't Ready for It," he writes, quote, "The current wealth-based accreditation requirements for private investments are nonsensical and anachronistic. We should start thinking of crypto in a different way, as a technology that enables a new era of ultra-inclusive and customizable investing fit for this century. The world is tokenizing, and the United States should not get left behind." Vlad Tenev, the author of that op-ed, joins me now in a Fox Business exclusive. Vlad, how do you envision crypto as the vehicle for regular retail investors who have waited and wanted to buy shares in pre-IPO companies, but they haven't been able to?
I think there's a big problem, which is that if you're a retail investor right now and you want to invest in AI, it is very, very clear that they do, judging by the market activity yesterday and the overnight on Sunday, you don't have too many options. OpenAI is a private company, over 150 billion valuation. It's only available to select few insiders. And it's not like it was in the 80s where companies could go public at small valuations. The IPO process has gotten cumbersome. Only the biggest companies can do it. And that limits opportunities and upside to retail investors. And so I think that we're in a bit of a strange place when highly speculative assets are free for retail to invest in, but high quality, productive technology startups that are generating significant revenue are off limits. And I think that we now have an administration that's crypto friendly and retail friendly, and we see an opportunity to fix this major problem.
There you have it. I say, Mr. President, please take down that accredited investor wall for U.S. citizens. Every American should be able to invest in whatever they choose to invest in. Lock in. And I think as this tokenization takes place, I think we're going to see things like this that are taken down because they're irrelevant. They should have never been put in place. You're allowed to go to a facility and throw your money into machines all the time, and nobody tells you have a limit to that. It's disgusting. Every American should have access to accredited investor products, no question about it. And hopefully soon the federal government will make it happen. Never forget, Michael Saylor wanted only Bitcoin to have an ETF and be considered a commodity. This guy's not pro-American crypto, which would include Trump coin and XRP. This guy is all about himself and his own personal investment. And just like the Bitcoin Maxis and Michael Saylor are calling also for only an exclusive Bitcoin strategic reserve. Huge mistake.
When Ethereum is not going to be approved, sometime this summer it'll be very clear to everyone that Ethereum is deemed a crypto asset security, not a commodity. After that, you're going to see that Ethereum, BNB, Solana, Ripple, Cardano, everything down the stack is just a crypto asset security unregistered.
He's got that wrong. XRP in it of itself is not a security.
None of them will ever be wrapped by a spot ETF.
That's getting ready to be false too.
None of them will be accepted by Wall Street. None of them will be accepted by mainstream institutional investors as crypto assets. This is the one universal consensus accepted institutional grade crypto asset in the world.
I really agree with DAI on this. It's either, you know, massive yachts and G6, G7s for this guy for the rest of his life, or he's going to a home. Now, I don't know how many people out here know this or are aware of this, but Michael Saylor was the biggest loser in the dot-com bubble. 13 billion. Careful where you're putting all your eggs in your basket. Grayscale files to convert XRP Trust to an ETF with the New York Stock Exchange. Again, Michael Saylor is wrong. Again, more adoption happening now. $23 billion asset under management, Canadian asset management company. Proposed investment submits preliminary prospectus for a Ripple XRP spot ETF. They know what's coming. And here's the NASDAQ is going to go full crypto. He said it would never happen. Only Bitcoin could be the product, right? Oh boy, I tell you, the Bitcoin FUD is terrible. We got more of it to look at too. And look, it's not to be inflating this FUD and all of this. It is to untie it. Not everyone in this community knows as much as everyone else. We got to remember, there's a lot of people that are new here. There's a lot of people that, you know, a lot of you are busy with your lives. You don't have a chance to watch every single piece of news. So it's important that we go over this stuff because this is a lot of key figures from the Bitcoin camp saying some very false things about Ripple, the company, and XRP, the digital asset. But let's hear what NASDAQ says because they don't agree with Michael Saylor either.
I want to ask you about the ETF market while we have you here. We don't get Nelson here that often, so I want to pick your brains. This is one of the many things in your portfolio is to make sure the NASDAQ ETF business continues to do well. It seems to me there's two big trends here. One is the cryptocurrency trend. The cryptocurrency ETFs, the biggest, I mean, I don't know if it's the most successful launch ever, but 150 billion in assets in 1 year is pretty darn good. You have IBIT, which is the biggest one out there, is listed on NASDAQ, right? The BlackRock ETF. Give us some riff on that, if you will. And then the other trend I see is sort of option-based ETFs in general. But talk about crypto first.
You know, we're still obviously big proponents of the active market, so I think there's still a lot more money in active assets, but more new money going into, you know, ETF assets. That's very clear. 2 out of every $3 is moving in that direction. So we just continue to see demand for ETFs being built by NASDAQ. It's not just NASDAQ, though. There's other big providers out there. So I just think we are continuing to see this trend of passive, but you need to have active to, you know, marry that so you don't end up being too concentrated just in active. So I think we're in a unique moment in time to say how does active continue to have a role. So you do have moments where the whole sector gets developed around something like digital or crypto, and now potentially having more clarity on the rules of what it actually is going to be.
Do you anticipate we will? I mean, we keep waiting for this grand piece of legislation for years now. That it seems more real now, the possibility.
It feels as real as ever. So just being over at the World Economic Forum, there's a lot of the players in the digital space, but then you start talking of the institutional side, the banks saying, well, if there's rule clarity, you know, we're going to be more active in the space. So I think it certainly feels like to us, their mandate from the top saying there's going to be more clarity is coming, and we'll see.
And there you have it. They're leaning in. They're leaning in. And I got to give you this quick clip from the crypto czar here that's really got everybody in the Bitcoin camp up in arms because he won't say yes to just Bitcoin Reserve.
When are we going to hear the announcement about the Bitcoin Reserve from the Trump administration? Everyone's waiting for that. We got the study and the review, but the Bitcoin Reserve, Texas is going to move forward. It looks like with legislation Dan Patrick announced today, that's a big priority for them in Texas. But how about the Trump administration?
Well, there's also a bill in the Senate. I think Cynthia Lummis from Wyoming has introduced a bill to create a national Bitcoin reserve. President Trump has asked us to study that issue, so we're just not ready to comment on it yet, but it's one of the things our working group's going to look at.
Can't wait, David.
There you have it. Now, it doesn't mean it's not going to go in there, and I have said from day one, make it a multiple basket. Brad Garlinghouse has said the same exact thing, and many other people. DAI said the same thing. You know, no, I have not heard anyone from the XRP camp say exclusive XRP reserve, but you hear it from the Bitcoin folks, and now you hear this from the Honorable Chris Giancarlo as well, digital commodity stockpile.
We may once again base our currencies on a commodity, but this time a digital commodity, one that has program scarcity built into it, such as Bitcoin. Oh, it's not such a far-fetched idea because countries like the BRICS nations are already experimenting with that idea, and China's been talking about it with their own digital commodity. So the notion of a stockpile, and I would ask the question, does it need to be limited to Bitcoin? Maybe it might be limited to other digital commodities like Ethereum, like XRP or others, but we can explore that. But I think the notion of a stockpile makes a lot of sense. In fact, nations like the United States, nations like China stockpile commodities all the time. We stockpile petroleum. China stockpiles soybeans. They stockpile rebar. They stockpile copper. So commodities are stockpiled by nations all the time. And we should be, and President Trump is absolutely right to be thinking about a stockpile of digital commodities. And we're absolutely right to be thinking about.
And there you have it. So listen, this is where we need to be here and having an adult conversation. Meanwhile, Michael Saylor's featured on the cover of Forbes as the Bitcoin alchemist. DAI says here, we live in the world where the media builds you up and then breaks you down. It's absolutely true. I hope this is not Michael Saylor's fate, but I've seen this movie so many times and my gut is screaming at me on this one, and mine too. CZ Binance says, went through this. Laugh face. Yeah. CZ Binance knows he went through all of this. And then how many more lies are we going to have happen out here? How many more lies will Ripple allow to be spread about them without any accountability? Asked Mr. Intuitive. Shout out to him on this one.
Ripple has never bought Ripple. They've only sold it.
Okay, this kid's uninformed or he's flat out lying. Remember, I used to cover the quarterly reports where Ripple was buying back XRP, and I was fascinated by it because at the time, Jimmy Vallee and others were talking about the Fed buying back XRP, and I was like, well, Ripple's buying it back right now. And we can't rule out the fact that the U.S. government may be buying it soon because of the strategic reserve. This guy was running a lot of FUD and interference too, but it's a connection to this Bitcoin guy here that's going to blow your mind, ladies and gentlemen. Take a quick listen to some of this.
I see the downside less in terms of impacting Bitcoin in particular and more pertaining to other altcoins, specifically Ripple. There's a lot of positive sentiment in the market for Ripple right now and a lot of excitement around Ripple as potentially a strategic reserve. But I see a lot of fundamental flaws in XRP in particular, and honestly view a strategic reserve backed by Ripple as being the demise of the network itself for a number of reasons.
And there's a little bit about RXP. You seem to be hot on that issue. Certainly, we have seen a massive surge, to say the least.
First of all, I just want to cut in really quickly here and notice that this guy said just by XRP being a strategic reserve, no one has suggested that just XRP be a strategic reserve. See, this is come down to, the tyranny of or versus the power of and. We just heard Brad Garlinghouse say this. It's an old adage. And the reality is that the tyranny of or, it's either this or that versus this and that. And that's all we've been saying, is that it should be a multiple basket. Keep listening.
Up by 50+%, I believe, since the start of the year. When you talk about worrisome signs here, why you are a bit concerned, lay that out for us.
Mm-hmm. So it really goes back to the fundamental behavior of how Ripple itself operates. XRP, the token, runs on the XRP ledger, a decentralized ledger of sorts. which has
It's not of sorts. It is decentralized.
largely been scrutinized for being controlled and manipulated by Ripple Labs, an independent organization that I somewhat view as smoke and mirrors.
They do not control the ledger.
Ripple Labs maintains a lot of influence over XRP, particularly how networks are validated by selecting a node list of validators that process all transactions. And most participants in the network use Ripple Labs' default node list. So what does that really mean? Why does that matter for all of this? I actually view this kind of weakness and fail point in the centralized aspects of Ripple as really being why the government would even consider it to be a key candidate for reserve, because they could actually purvey mass regulatory overreach and influence to ensure that any transactions that occur on the Ripple network itself comply with all US regulations, comply with all nation state laws. They may ban particular transactions from particular institutions or nodes domiciled in particular geographical regions. And
Where did this guy escape from? First of all, you need to know that this guy works with Bill Hinman's son, Nate Hinman. You need to know that. And he's a big investor in Ethereum and Solana. There's another part of it. Shout out to Cowboy Crypto for that info, because he's one of the best researchers out here. Look, did you think that we were moving to a financial system where all the banks and all the financial institutions of the world were just going to use a decentralized network like Bitcoin and have 9 transactions a minute and charge over $4,000 to move $60,000 Bitcoin like you did to me back when it was $60,000? Is that your solution for the future? It's disgusting. Vet says here in response to the guy, Anthony, Vet says, why putting XRP Ledger decentralized in quotes? Happy to debate Anthony and all things he touched on. Nonetheless, Ripple has no control over XRP Ledger, just as Michael Saylor has no control over Bitcoin. The default node list is a publication of Ripple nodes, Ripple UNL. Every single node has its own UNL and is free to choose. Maintaining overlap in UNL is a choice for a mainnet, just like Bitcoin enforces. XRP Ledger has pushed billions in value and millions of transactions in 2024 while being very scalable by nature, payment channels, etc., elastic ledger size. What Anthony doesn't really comprehend here is what I think a lot of Bitcoin maxis haven't gotten their mind around. There's the internet we all use that's overseen with standards and principles and practices on an international level. And then there's the dark web. Okay? And if you think you're going to be sending money all around the world to this one and that one and that one and this one, nobody's going to be KYC'd and nobody knows anything about it, you're living in a dreamland, right? You're living in a world where everybody, poops rainbow ice cream. It's like, where are you from? Where are you from? There is a huge cliff fall coming for Bitcoin people. And I'm not saying it won't be in the strategic reserve. I hope that it is to an extent. What I'm saying is that there's a huge cliff drop coming between reality and perception. And they're standing on a very tall cliff edge that is their perception. And what is coming very soon is falling off of that cliff and hitting the ground, which is reality. Listen to Scott Melker here.
Asset stockpile rather than strategic reserve. I happen to be in some chats and obviously have my eyes and ears on the ground. And I heard people saying things, some Bitcoiners saying certain things on Twitter that were not factual from the chats. And what was happening behind the surface was that it was very clear that XRP was being considered and they were freaking out. Right. And so I actually shared that. And I think I started this madness, whether intentionally or not. But I shared a tweet saying, hey, don't shoot the messenger, but I can tell you that XRP is being strongly considered for the strategic reserve. Factually, right? And I'm not going to divulge my sources, and that's what kind of sparked the Jack Mallers emergency, press conference in the Dave Portnoy style. and sort of the major panic here. But I think it's very clear, and so I think we're just seeing that very, very clearly. Do I believe XRP will necessarily become a reserve asset? I don't know. If you look at many people's interpretation of digital asset stockpile was to take the same approach as they're taking potentially with the Silk Road and Bitfinex. To my knowledge, the United States in all these criminal cases has not actually taken much XRP, so they would have to buy it. Right. So when you talk to people about this strategic stockpile, I think symbolically it's more likely the United States government, as we said, holds what they have. And that starts the game theory of other countries having to stockpile these assets. Right now, they don't have XRP. So it's it will take a pretty aggressive lobby, I think, from XRP to have the United States actually purchase it. Because I would handicap personally us having some sort of stockpile at 95% because we already are holding the assets. I would put it sub 10% that the United States starts buying any digital assets.
Well, that's interesting because you know what? We currently have a fine with the SEC to pay over $100 million fine. They could pay it in XRP. And then the U.S. government could go ahead and grab that, and that would be in the stockpile. Because isn't it coming back to what Gary Gensler taught so well at MIT, is that you may have to give some of your token or your ownership to the central monopolists that control the financial system. Take a listen.
Central monopolist with another central monopolist. A lot of commercial banks aren't terribly excited about that. Maybe you're going to have to give some ownership. Maybe you'll have to give 50% of your ownership to the 20 banks that are now, part of this. I mean, there are other ways to build incentive systems. Maybe you put a native token in there, and you give them the native token. So
we got a lot of XRP in escrow, right? How much of that's been pre-allocated already?
There may be other incentive ways to beat the current monopolist.
Is there any more of a monopolist than the one with the largest economy in the world, known as the U.S. government, and not just banks?
But I, having been around commercial banks for a long time, they really are looking for ways to replace their aggregators in their back office, whether it's clearing, settlement, exchanges, credit agencies.
We're certainly seeing UST bills being tokenized onto the XRP ledger and soon to be en masse, according to Austin King from Omni.
But they are deeply understanding because they are pretty ambitious and very good at making money as well. They deeply understand that every idea that's pitched to them is somebody who currently is small but wants to get big and gain market power. So they're also always thinking about how to ensure that there's a check to slow down your startup from gaining market power 5, 10, and 15 years from now. They don't want.
And then we got sued after hitting the number 2 spot and displacing Ethereum.
You to be the next clearinghouse like the Chicago Mercantile Exchange or Intercontinental Exchange. They don't want you to be the next central node of market power.
So DTC ends up buying Securrency, which is the ability to work with protocols like Ethereum, EOS, Stellar, and Ripple's XRP ledger, and legacy systems.
So you might share some of that with them, or you might find an incentive system.
That sounds like a sharing system, doesn't it? That's where we're at today, ladies and gentlemen, and it's going to take the legislative clarity and some executive orders and the rest of it to get it done and bring it home the rest of the way. But what we're getting ready to see is the difference between the internet and the dark web, but with value added. So there will be protocols that are considered legitimate, legal protocols, and then there will be the dark web version of value protocols. Know what you hold, ladies and gentlemen. Not financial advice from me or anyone else. I'll catch all of you on the next one.